We have now started our traveling during our first day in Denmark, and our route roughly follows the coastline. One of the most common types of locations of interest to find along the Danish coast is lighthouses, and compared to Finland they are easy to access since they are not on islands far out into the sea. This is Hirtshals Lighthouse, and besides being in a lovely white color, you can walk up into it and get a really nice view of the surrounding landscape. There are also lots of bunkers around here, but more about that later. Another lighthouse we visited was in Skagen, which is the northernmost tip of Denmark. Unlike the previous area, this lighthouse is surrounded by sand dunes and of course very long beaches. A lot of these lighthouses seem to be built around the mid-19th century. They don't need to be manned anymore, so it seems the former buildings are used for mostly cafes and museums these days. Not far from the lighthouse, there are lots of German bunkers from the Second World War. These were part of the Atlantic Wall defense line, which went all the way from northern Norway to the border with Spain. And being really difficult to remove, they have been left as a reminder of the war and the occupation by the Nazis. You can see the bunkers as an ugly reminder of the war, but there is also something fascinating about these abandoned concrete boxes in the middle of otherwise beautiful natural locations. Some of these bunkers have been covered by the sand or have sunk into it, in a way becoming a part of the landscape. And I have to say that the weathered concrete, beaches and colorful graffiti makes a weird but interesting combination. This bunker, having sunk into the sand, almost looks like a beached whale. It seems to be quite popular among visitors, but it finally got empty and I went up to have a look at it. There are probably many more bunkers around here, but unfortunately they all seem to be sealed, so you cannot really get a look inside of them. The wave seems to be hitting it somehow inside, making these weird sounds. As I mentioned earlier, there are lots of bunkers around the Hirtshals Lighthouse as well. These green hills might look quite innocent, but they are covering up a whole network of bunkers, and unlike at Skagen, you can actually walk into these. Unfortunately though, there isn't so much inside them, otherwise they wouldn't be open like this, of course. Usually there's a staircase up to the trenches at the back and one staircase to the side to, I think, an observation post. It was very dark in here, and of course I noticed I had forgotten my flashlight with the camping gear, so I had to use my smartphone to light the way. Something to remember for next time, to actually have 2 flashlights with me always. Now you might think that the door wasn't there before, and it's quite true. We have transported ourselves to another bunker, and behind the door there's a time capsule, even though they have named it the bunker secret site or something like that. I don't know, maybe it sounds more cool that way. In any case, a bunker seems to be a good idea for a time capsule, since it's a very stable structure and it's easier to keep people out of it. Now back into the light, out of the fresh air again, and let's see if there's something more to these bunkers. Behind these bunkers there are the trench lines, which connects to bunkers with other functions, such as accommodation and so on. To the side I also found this small room. I don't know what it might have been, maybe a munition storage or something like that. These trenches continue quite a lot, and probably there are lots of bunkers that we didn't see. We didn't have time to go to every single place, and they seem quite similar anyway. But at least I found one accommodation bunker. There isn't really so much inside here besides a dark room, but this machine gun port at the entrance is quite interesting. Now that's enough bunkers for this time, and now let's go to the next location. Now, this is neither a lighthouse nor a bunker. It's an old church, of which only the tower remains. The rest of the church was demolished because of shifting sands, and when this church was functioning, they had such problems with sand covering up doors and windows, so they always had to dig it out before using it. So they decided to demolish it and build a church in a different location instead. And just this tower remains of the church nowadays. There wasn't so much than a tower to see here, so let's go to the next location, which was also my favorite of the day. Kinda looks like we have arrived in the middle of a desert, but it's really just a big sand dune which surrounds this lighthouse, and also the sand is the reason why this lighthouse has been abandoned over time. The surrounding area didn't quite look like this when it was built at the beginning of the 20th century. As this photo from 1912 shows, it looked quite different back then. The lighthouse was abandoned already in the 1960s because of the shifting sands. After that there was some cafe here for some time, but it also closed down, and the buildings which remained were demolished only a few years ago. Even though it might not seem so at first, you can actually walk up into this lighthouse. The staircase seems to have been added a few years ago, so it's quite safe. The staircase is a really nice idea, since it allows people to go up to the top and enjoy the view, which is quite nice here. Now, they also have a much more serious problem at these locations, namely the cliffs are being eaten away by the sea, and it's estimated that within 5 years or so the whole lighthouse will fall into the sea. So if you want to see this location, well, don't postpone it too much. It is a really nice and unique location, so if you go to Denmark I would definitely recommend this place. On the way up, I didn't notice that the staircase looks almost transparent, but on the way back it felt a bit strange actually to walk down on this. But now the light is getting quite interesting, so let's take some photos. We were here a bit late in the day, so a lot of people had already visited it, so there were footsteps almost all over the place, so I had to walk back a bit further to find a clear spot. I wanted to include the wind pattern in the sand in my photo, in the foreground, and to have the lighthouse in the background. And to get both subjects into focus, I had to use focus stacking, so I used a tripod and I set it up quite close to the ground to get both subjects into the frame. Now the day is almost over, but we have one more location before we go to the camping. This is National Park 2 by the west coast in Denmark, and of course, since it's pointing west, it's a very nice location for sunsets. We didn't have that much time to look around the area, so we just went down to the parking lot to the beach. There wasn't really anyone else around at this hour, so it was a really good opportunity to take some photos by the beach.
Oh my god.
I managed to find one rock by the beach to build my composition around. The waves weren't that big, but a few times I had to run away to not get my feet wet.
Yes. Nice.
Now the day was ending, it was time to go to the camping. As every day we arrived late, but we managed to find someone to open the gate for us so we could get a place to sleep. Thank you for watching. The next video will also be about Denmark, but from a completely different location from this, so see you in that video. Bye!